Hello, hello. Hi. Um, People are trickling in, which is nice. And I have some questions to start us off with. I'm sitting in front of the fireplace because it is a cold. It is very cold inside the house, outside the house, everywheres. And just a reminder that if you would not like your camera up, and being shown on the screen like I am, keep your camera off and your mic off, and you can stay like completely off camera because we are recording. So if you feel comfortable sharing your camera, you can. If you're like, better not, then that's okay too. Also, I have my Rugrats mug today with us. Yeah, so we're going to start off with some questions that have been sent to me by people who are not able to make the call right now because it's during work hours and things like that, so they can't really make it, but they still deserve to have their questions answered. So we're going to do that first, and then I'll open the floor for whoever is on call who would like to ask questions. You can choose to just unmute your mic and speak it, and not have your camera showing. You can choose to have your camera showing and have a conversation. You can choose also to just type it. So if you don't want your camera, you don't even want your voice, that's okay. It's fine. Just give me a little typey type and I will read it. I have the chat open right here so I can see it. Okay. So we're going to start off. I'm going to share my screen, because I made a little presentation ish just so you can see what the questions are. So I would do that now. I hope you're having a good day, by the way. And if not, right, that's okay. Because sometimes days are not good days. And that's all part of the flow of life. Sometimes it's not a good day. Okay, share screen. This. So I don't want to share the whole thing. How do I slideshow? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm also going to be looking on my phone, but I promise I'm not like texting or anything. I'm just, I'm going to join so I can see the chat. Because I want to be able to see the chat. So the first question that got sent in was, let me find it. The chat, I mean. um, Here we go. So the first question that got okay, I think I figured it out. There, I did. Okay. All right. So the chat's on my phone so I can see it if you say anything. So, first question. Is it normal for the I've been asked this question multiple times, by the way. Is it normal for the family to follow the narcissistic parent, even adult siblings? Feels like a cult. And you're correct in saying, it feels like a cult because it basically operates kind of the same way, if you think about it. And is it normal? Yes. Unfortunately, it is normal. I mean, nothing about this family dynamic is normal, right? But yes, for this family dynamic, it is normal for the family to follow the narcissistic parent like a cult leader, kind of, because, and it's also that's also a big reason why it's so terrifying to break away and break off from the group and break off from the cult, if we want to call it that for this question. Because what happens in cults, right? There is a leader, there are followers. The leader is in charge of allocating resources, of giving out discipline, of organizing how things work, and there's always a set of rules and expectations that you need to follow, right? And the leader doesn't even necessarily need to follow all those rules or abide by them because they're the leader. You need to listen. If you don't listen, you've got consequences. So yeah, it is very, very similar. And much like a cult, when someone leaves, there's whispers, right? Like everybody's talking about that person who left. Everyone's saying this, that, the other thing, basically making smear campaigns. And even if there are people who see that person leave the cult and have thoughts of like, hmm, I wonder if they're onto something, or I've been feeling that way too. Huh. Should I leave? That's kind of similar to like brain fog in the way that even when those thoughts happen, for most people who are in cults, they very quickly go away. Like the thoughts are very quickly talked out of them, or somebody comes up to them and says, changes their mind by scaring them into what might happen afterwards if they do decide to leave the cult. Super, super, super similar to narcissistic families because there is a set of rules you absolutely need to follow. The parent does not need to follow those rules. And the way that narcissistic parent, I'm just going to call narc parent because it's a hard word to keep saying. The way that narc parent um, operates in the world, right? And the way that other people see them and the things that they do and everything like that, they're very much shown as like a very good person, a well-to-do person, for the most part. And so is a cult leader. And there's instances, right, where like a cult leader will get together or be around one or two other followers. And the way that that leader will interact in that smaller group is much different, much different. More things are going to happen that are not going to be allowed to be talked about amongst the rest of the group, right? Amongst the society of the cult. Just like in narcissistic families with siblings and stuff, even when we're adults, there's triangulation that happens, there's whispers, smear campaigns. Um, it's a thing. And if one person has an interaction with a narcissistic parent and you want to tell your sibling about it or tell this person about that, it's not always going to go over well. Most times they kind of side with the narcissistic parent, and for the majority, that comes out of, like, not understanding, being brainwashed, brain fog, and also sometimes, a lot of the time, it's out of fear. It's fear of, "Okay, well, if I don't have this person in my life, like, if I do speak out, if I do listen to what you're saying to me, what happens to me then? Like, do I just not have a family?" And for a lot of people, that's the thought of not having that family unit at all is more terrifying than being within a family unit where there's constant abuse. And unfortunately, the comfort in being a part of something you already know takes precedent over the possibilities and like uncertainty, though, right? Possibilities of positivity, goodness afterwards, but also the uncertainty of like what now. So it can be a big jolt to the system for people to branch out and be the scapegoat or be the change maker for themselves and move beyond it. And so I mean that's what you are doing right now, and you're going through all the motions, right, of the uncertainties after, and there are possibilities of positivity after, and there is a lot of like healing that happens. And I mean healing sometimes is like, oh wait, this is awesome, and healing sometimes is like, oh, this is really shitty and I'm really sad and alone. And that's part of healing, and that's scary, right, to a lot of people. And you're doing the scary work that you deserve to do to get back to yourself and to experience life outside of abuse and outside of the cult like feeling. But yes, is it normal for families to follow the narc parent like a cult leader, basically? Unfortunately, yes. All right, next question. Feeling guilty lately for going no contact, missing my mom. I feel like I'm going crazy. You are not going crazy. I promise you that. That's the first thing I'm going to say. You are not going crazy. Let me say it one more time. You're not going crazy. It definitely feels that way though, because when we go no contact with someone, especially when it's someone, and this was written in by a female, which does matter because our relationships with our moms really, really have a big, excuse me, connection with the way that we view ourselves, and how we move forward in the world. So, feeling guilty lately for going no contact, missing my mom, missing your mom is going to happen. It's going to happen. And it's not necessarily that you're missing your mom in the way that she was. It's more so missing, the good moments that you had, right? But the good moments are also part of the manipulation to keep you around and to keep you in the realm of being around that person so that when the bad things happen, it kind of like it becomes murky and confusing. So you're hopeful that things will get better again, and it kind of keeps you in the loop. It makes sense to miss your mom and feel like you're going crazy because when we go into contact with someone who we're close with and who we have a strong emotional bond with, and I mean, even if you don't like your mom and you have all these thoughts about her, that's still an emotional connection, like fundamentally from birth, right? And like as a mammal, we have that connection with our moms, our parents, internally, and it's going no contact is basically the same in our brain as when we decide to come out of addiction because our brains and our bodies and our nervous systems are becoming have become addicted to that person, and this happens in relationships too when you leave like toxic relationships. Your body becomes addicted to the person, to the chaos. It does. It becomes addicted to the chaos and the high spikes in cortisol and things going wrong, and stuff like that. And it is a chemical reaction that happens within our brains, and it takes about 3 months of no contact, right? Just the same as like drugs, alcohol. If you're trying to quit something, it takes about 3 months to start your brain just start pulling away from the addiction, and then the loneliness comes, and the whole onslaught of like, okay, now what do I do with that? But it takes about 3 months to for your body to realize that this is what's happening. We're making a change. We're not going to talk to this person anymore. Holy fuck. And then your body starts to freak out. It starts to, right? Because our brains like familiarity. They like things that they know and that they think that they understand, right? They think that they understand their parents and all this stuff, the way that they treated us. And so it will do whatever it can to like convince you to go back to the familiarity. So it will make you remember all of these moments. It will make you feel guilty. And guilt is something super, super familiar for us, right? Because guilt is a huge factor that's been weaponized against us for manipulation. And so in moments like this, guilt is like immediately one of the biggest feelings that we feel because it's like, uh, I just left, I just left them. What the fuck did I just do? And you start, and we're right, we're like not the best at making decisions and like being confident about our decisions, especially when you first come out of it and you're like just starting no contact. You're like, fuck, did I make the right decision? Am I going to regret this? And it's okay to be thinking those things and feeling those things. You make sense if you think and feel those things, especially when you think about what's happening chemically in your brain when you go no contact, especially with a parent. So I feel like I'm going crazy. Yeah, that feeling is very valid. It makes so much sense. You make sense. You're not actually going crazy though. Like you yourself are doing the right thing for yourself by going no contact and moving forward and like living a life for you. And it's okay to feel like "Ah," while you're doing it. Just trust that the "Ah" is part of the process. Okay. And you are very much not alone in this scenario. I can tell you that. But I would say to look up what happens chemically in your brain when you cut off an addiction, because it very much so acts in the same way. And then, oh, a tidbit also. To replace the addiction within your body of like to chaos and all that stuff, and adrenaline from like the back and forth feelings that you get with a narcissistic parent, you can, after the 3 months of like feeling and letting yourself go through the motions, you replace those unhealthy chaotic things with healthy chaotic things. What I mean by that is, if you like going to if you like going on roller coasters, like actual roller coasters, that is a replacement for the adrenaline and stuff that you feel in the push pull argument conversations, and trying to get them to understand your point of view and things like that. You can replace it. You can replace it with dancing, dancing in your room in the morning. That firstly allows you to get like our CPTSD loves for us in the morning to get our wiggles out, literally. Dance, woo, get your wiggles out. Your body wants to get your like your everything going on, everything that's suppressed over your whole life out. And the morning is a great time to do that. What the heck was my point? I had a point. Oh, that's a good way to start replacing the chaotic feelings, is by doing things like that are more in a positive way, but still give your body that like feeling that it craves after you go no contact. Over time, I mean, you should still do that in the morning because it's super fun. Over time, you become addicted to calmness. For a while, the calmness and like solo time and all that stuff feels really lonely and super uncomfortable. But over time, it becomes comforting, and you like become addicted to calm and peace, and it becomes so clear when things are not that way. And once you see things for what they are, you can't like unsee them. And you start seeing it at work. You start seeing the way people treat each other in public. You start seeing the way that like the governments of the world are run. And it's absolutely wild how much this comes up in life. You're not going crazy. This question: how do I start making boundaries and then keeping them without people thinking I'm a bitch? So, this question has a few parts to it. Firstly, you need to be okay. And I know this is terrifying because so many of us are people pleasers, but that also means being a people pleaser means you're pleasing everybody else but yourself. Okay. And you got to be pleasing yourself. It's your life. Your life. You have to be there for you without people thinking I'm a bitch. So, firstly, you need to be okay with people thinking you're a bitch, because that's not what you're doing. That's not how you're being by setting boundaries and keeping them. You are not being a bitch. You are taking care of yourself. You are loving yourself. You are giving yourself the things that you deserve. And it's kind of like a weed and feed situation, right? The people who, if you start making boundaries and keep them, the people who think you're a bitch are not the people that you want around you anyway, right? Because they don't respect you. They don't want the best for you. They want the best for them from you. And the people who think that you're a bitch when you start making boundaries and like speaking up for yourself, they're people who probably would call you a bitch behind your back anyway for something, some this or that or whatever. They're not the people you want around you. And yes, there will be people who decide they don't want to talk to you anymore, who don't want to be part of your life. There'll be people who you will decide to like distance yourself from. And you don't have to tell them, like, you don't have to message them or talk to them and say, hey, I don't want you in my life anymore. You can just like not associate with them anymore. Don't talk to them, don't be around them. Um, and yeah, so you will start saying no to people being around you too. And the people who cut you off when you start making boundaries, good riddance. Good riddance. Because boundaries are not, people think, people who don't respect boundaries think that boundaries are like walls. You cannot come in. They're not walls, they are doors. Oh, hello. they're doorways, right? And it's not a wall of like, you can't be in my life. It's these are the boundaries that I have for myself. And this is the way to show me that you care about me. These are the ways I feel loved. These are the ways I feel respected. These are the ways that you can show me that you want to be part of my life. And they're not even like they're not outrageous. They are not outrageous. Like a boundary of within yourself, but you agree within yourself, like, okay, I'm not going to let anyone yell at me in conversation, and if they do, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to do this, that. Um, Not wanting someone to yell at you, wanting to be comfortable in situations and be safe, and for your feelings to be held, and for people to treat you with kindness and to be considerate. Those are not insane boundaries that are a huge ask, right? But a lot of the times, people who are toxic or narcissistic, abusive, they don't like when you have those boundaries because that cuts off, firstly, that cuts off the way that they have been treating you. And so now they need to change and they don't like changing. It also shows them a reflection of what they have not been doing. It shows them a reflection, like a mirror, of like, these are all the very easy things that kindergartners can do, okay? Kindergartners know all of those rules and all those like boundaries. So it's not hard. So you're reflecting back to them things that they're not doing, things that they have not are not capable of doing for you within themselves. And that incapability pisses them off too. On top of that, numero uno, dos, tres, you in showcasing your boundaries and keeping them, you're showing that you're coming into yourself. You're showing you're becoming even more of your own individual. You're walking more into your power. And that also pisses them off. It terrifies them because you're taking away their control over you. And that's like their whole identity is to control you. And therefore that gives them some sort of supply to their ego, right? And so when they are not able to control you anymore, and you keep that, you keep your boundaries with them, it terrifies them and it pisses them off. And they're going to either cut you off or you can cut them off, which is stupid, but also good riddance. Or they'll start talking poorly about you, try to get other people to like convince you to talk to them or to convince other people not to talk to you. And so it just starts a whole stupid train. But once again, good riddance. I know it's hard to deal with. It's fucking emotional and lonely again, right? The healing process is a series of lonelinesses that pop up. Um, but yeah, start making boundaries. How do I start making boundaries? I have at the very end of this call, I have a prompt that is so helpful to figure out what self-aligning boundaries you want to make in your life. So I'll share that with you at the end. So how do I start making boundaries? I'll show you. Keeping them, you really have to focus inward and understand that you are a deserving person, you are a worthy person, and you deserve kindness and love and comfort and the basic necessities that a human needs, like proper connection. And you're worthy of happiness. You're worthy of good connection with a good person, good people around you. And basically, any situation where you don't feel comfortable or where you have that gut feeling of like, this isn't right, which we all feel growing up in narcissistic families. However, we ignore it. Like we ignore our gut feelings about that stuff growing up. In our adulthood, we can still feel it and we need to listen to it. So if there's like a feeling in your gut, you're right. You are right most of the time. So listen to that and be okay with people thinking you're a bitch. Whatever. So what? Bye. Um, this one. So much grief over my enabling dad and him always choosing my narcissistic mom. We used to be best friends. When it comes to grief, I personally am not the best with working through grief of people who have passed in my life. However, grieving goes so much further than grieving somebody who is same but reverse. Grief for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Grief is such a huge thing that people who grow up with in narcissistic families deal with, because it's not you're not just grieving like people who pass away through your life. You're also grieving the parents that you thought that you had when you were younger. Because we don't fully understand when we're younger, like what's going on. So, we think about the good things more, even though there's a lot of bad things. And over time, as we get older, the good things kind of fizzle out in our memories. And we remember feelings a lot of the time. Like, not, I felt like this on that day, but like feelings that your body felt over longer periods of time. And we remember the bad moments also, because I mean that's our brain's way of protecting us from it happening again. The really, really bad moments, our brain just cuts it off from us for the most part. And you can do therapies to bring those out if you would like. But our brain tries to protect us from a lot of things while also keeping note of what has happened so that it can protect us in the future. Um, I just went off on a little tangent, but grieving over, the parents that you thought that you had, but also grieving over the parents that you wish you were going to have through your whole life. Grieving over all the milestones that you've had without them there, that you're going to have without them there, that they're not even going to reach out to you for. And if they do, it's an empty message that's meant for them to feel better, to be like, oh, I said this to them. I did my part, check mark, you know? It's not actually them being genuinely proud of you, and that hurts. That hurts. It's a grieving thing. Um, getting married and not having them there, choosing to not have them there, not having them there for if you have a baby, if you get really, really sick, if you just want to be like, hey mom or hey dad, I'm sad. Can we talk? That doesn't exist for the vast majority of us. So you're grieving over that stuff. You're grieving over um, people that you've had to cut off because, right, even though they're still alive, they're kind of dead in your life because they're not there. Um, Grieving over sibling relationships not being the way that you've always hoped that it would be. Grieving over friends that have dwindled, or cousins or aunts, uncles that don't really talk to you anymore because of the things that your parents have said to them about you during smear campaigns. And grieving over relationships with enabling parents, which is a toughie because, and I've experienced this too, and this is a toughie because we also have to remember, even though it's not right, we have to remember that that person, that parent, that enabling parent is in an active relationship with an abusive person. They're in an active relationship with a narcissistic person. There's tons of brain fog that happens. There's tons, right? They're being manipulated, they're being brainwashed. They might not even realize fully what's going on, because you don't fully realize what's going on until you're out of it. And when you're all mixed up with this person, if they're older, right? 60s, whatever, they're probably like, what do I do though? Like, do I get a divorce? And then what happens after that? I'm just alone. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying, more terrifying than being in an abusive relationship. If they even realize through the brain fog, through the manipulation, that there is an option of leaving. Um, and so our enabling parents kind of also, quote unquote, need to be abiding by the narcissistic parent, following their rules, hiding when they message you, right? They could be going through your enabling parent's phone whenever they want. What if they find a message of them being buddy buddy with you and now it's a whole full blown argument fight that lasts for days in their house? It's scary. Being an enabling person with an abusive person is terrifying. And you never know what kind of a day you're going to have. And that person, like your enabling parent, probably also is dealing with confusion within themselves and grappling with the fucking heavy sadness of knowing that your relationship is not the way that it used to be and not knowing how to fix it, not knowing how to grasp at it anymore. And it's probably a very lonely and isolating feeling for them too. That does not, two things can exist at one time, right? Saying all of that and understanding where an enabling parent comes from is one thing that exists. And also, you don't deserve to not have a parent there for you. You don't deserve for them to not listen to you. You don't deserve for them to not understand you. You don't deserve for them to keep pushing your boundaries and trying to get you to do something, especially when it comes to the narcissistic parent. You trying to like connect back with them and stuff. You don't deserve any of that. And you deserve to feel happy and loved. And even though we can understand the enabling parents' experience, you also are experiencing, and your reality is just as valid, and your feelings are just as valid. And it's so, so sad and unfortunate that most times the two worlds won't be able to cohesively coexist. And we do lose a best friend in our enabling parent over time. And that is a heavy thing to grieve. And it's a confusing thing to grieve because there's no like rule book. There's no, this is how you deal with it. Um, you just kind of, and everyone goes through it differently. You just have to be compassionate when your body and your feelings want to express themselves. And when you see like out in public, right? You'll see families, you'll see like a mom and a daughter hanging out and like having fun, and even like older adults, adults with their moms or adults with their dads, or all three of them together. And you're like, whoa, you're all three together? All of you? You're all having a good time? That's crazy. Um, but yeah, seeing people out in public having a loving relationship with their parents is also like you're happy for them, but it's like a huge reminder of what you don't have and what you won't have. And it's like a like it's heavy. You're grieving that. This is something that we're going to be grieving our whole lives. And it won't feel as heavy every day. It changes, it transforms. And sometimes you feel like, yes, I feel great about myself and this is awesome and I don't need to call them up. I have this person to talk to, and I can also be there for myself. And but then there's days where you bawl your eyes out because you're like, I just want to call my mom. And you can't when you used to be able to talk to that person and now you can't. And so I just want you to know that it's okay to grieve over all those things, and it's real. The grief is really real. Um, and it's super normal to be have a close relationship with your enabling parent and then have it just completely go away, especially if you've moved out uh, or pulled away a little bit from your narc parent. That tends to happen. Because if you think about it, also in a narcissistic relationship, that person, like the narc person, tries their darndest to isolate the person they're with, right? And narcissistic people love enablers, they love people pleasers, they love empathetic people because narcissistic people are all gimme, 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 gimme. And people pleasers and empathetic people and are all give, 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 give. So they're all take, take, take. And the empathetic people, people pleasers, enabling people are give, give, give. So the relationship on paper works, makes sense for the abuse cycle, for what the narcissistic person is trying to get, right? Um, and so that's what's happening in their relationship is this push, pull, confusion, fear, tactics, manipulation going on, and the enabling parent becomes is starting to become isolated, is feeling like they can't actually talk to you about things, and they're trying to grapple with like connecting you back with a narcissistic parent so that they can at least have some sort of a relationship with you, which is selfish on their part. Unfortunately, it is. It's selfish on their part because a parent, even if they're an enabling one, should not ask you to put yourself back in harm's way and to put your body in discomfort for their personal gain. That is not something that a parent who truly, 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 truly cares about you will do. That is not saying that that's a bad person that you're if you're enabling parents trying to do that. They're just trying to reconnect because it's a human thing to try to connect, right? However, their need for connection with you is not more important than your need for safety within yourself. So please remember that. Okay. And it's okay to grieve. It's a huge grieving process when this kind of thing happens. Next question. This is another thing. Grief in not being able to be yourself around enabling siblings who talk to narc parents still. So, excuse me. This is kind of along the same lines as the last question. So, your siblings are kind of enabling and kind of seeking connection and kind of also being really hopeful that and in a little bit of denial when they don't pull away from their narc parents, even when you tell them this is how they are, this is what's going on, blah 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 blah. They still sometimes don't believe you. Sometimes the narc parent has already triangulated them against you. They've already told them, oh, your sister's probably going to say this to you about me, blah, 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 blah. Even though that might be true, what you tell that your sibling might be true. If the narcissistic parent has already got to them first, once you do say the thing, your sibling's brain goes, oh, yeah, see, dad told me you were going to say that. Even if they don't tell you that, their brain goes, dad told me they were going to say that to me. And it just affirms that you're wrong. You are not the one to be trusted. You're the one who's making things up. You're the one who's like blowing things out of proportion. And dad's right. There's no way he could do that. No, there's no way. And your brain helps you, right? Remember earlier in the call, I was talking about our brains like familiarity and they become addicted to that stuff. Um, and we're chemically like bonded. This happens also. Your sibling's brain does not want you to be right. They want the familiarity to be right. So it tries to push them into that direction. And when you're a child of an arc parent, accepting, like radically accepting that this person is narcissistic and abusive and has treated you actually ways you have not been deserving of, it throws your whole life off. Your whole development that you've known thus far is like out of whack. And your brain and your body is like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And so a lot of people, yeah, yeah, 100%, yeah. And it sucks and it's sad and it's fucking lonely. And especially with your siblings, right? Because the last question was, my enabling parent was like a best friend. So are siblings. So are siblings. Yeah, I mean, even if they also abused you growing up, it's still your sibling inside. That's how you feel, and you're like, but maybe we could, but maybe they'll believe me one day, and that might be true. but we also have to accept that that might not happen, that might not be true. And so you kind of like have to not be able to be yourself around them because you can't say all the things you want to say. You can't share all the exciting details about your life or all the things that are difficult in your life because then that person, your sibling, might go to your narc parent and maybe not on purpose, but share the things that you've said over time. And then your narc parent's going to do this. They're going to take what they said, put it in a ball, and stick it in their pocket until they can use it against you later, either directly or to other people around, letting people know, um, can we raise our hands during these questions or are we waiting till the end to share? I can pause. Anytime you have something to say or if you have a question, um, definitely, definitely just ask it. And if you would like to, like you could, yeah, there we go. I'm okay. This is cool. I've never done a raised hand thing before. All right, view. Wait, how does this work? April
I
Decker.
think I just talk.
There you
Do I
go.
just talk?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't see anybody else in here. Is there people hidden or something?
Yeah, if your
Amazing.
camera's not
Okay,
if your camera's not on, then like you don't exist really for the call, technically.
okay.
So it's just anonymous and stuff for people.
Um, well, like I love talking to you, but like I like to talk to other people too. Just like want them to hear me, but I know this is being recorded.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna put a poll up on a story and ask like what time would be better for people because I don't think this time's working out for a lot of people because like they're at work and stuff.
oh,
Um, yeah, yeah. So it's gonna change over time.
I just wanted to like because this is actually my question. I don't know if I just outed myself, but I like my sister is my best friend, and like
Mhm.
we're 18 months apart, so we're like really super close. But like I just hung out with her on Saturday, and because we went to a concert that night together, and then she was like, "Oh, I had eggs Benedict this morning." I was like, "You made eggs Benedict? That's so like fancy." And then she goes, "Oh no, I had breakfast with dad for his birthday." And I'm like, because like I totally forgot that it was my dad's birthday on Saturday. But of course they would go to breakfast together and stuff because she still sees him at least once a week and maybe like multiple times a week. But it's like I just don't know like what to do with that. 'Cause it's like she's still, hanging out with him and enabling his behavior, and she's okay with him. And like I'm so totally not, but like
Mhm.
I don't know, like it's like do I just like change the subject, or I just like like act like I'm interested, but I'm really not. Because I'm just like, how could you do that? Like how
Mhm.
could you just act like everything's totally fine? And that's why I'm saying like being myself, because being myself right now is like being healing journey April, and I can't fully be healing journey April around my enabling siblings because I can't talk to them about healing things, you
Right.
know? And so like that's what I mean by like the grief, because I'm just like I and like I even want to be like my full authentic self, but my full authentic self is everything that I've learned, and I want to share everything that I'm like learning with her, but I also
Mhm.
can't do that because she is not ready to heal herself. Like, and to have, she's not in the full, like, radical acceptance of everyone, like
Mhm.
narcissism in general. So, like, it being a thing. So, anyways, I guess that's all I want to say.
Yeah, and it's grieving. It is grieving because in that time where you're with that person, like, thank you for sharing, by the way, and asking and
Of
furthering your
course.
question. Yeah. Um, because you're not able to be yourself the way that you have in the past with the new knowledge and the growth and the learning that you have now. And it's really annoying and devastating and frustrating, especially when that sibling is still in conversation and around the parent that or let's just say the person, a person, because this can be like a friendship or whatever. If somebody was mistreating the people that you love and doing things that are like not okay, like not okay to the depths. Um, it is weird to continue hanging out with that person. It is. It doesn't make sense to continue being around somebody who is being that vile towards the people that you love. And it all comes down to that enabling sibling not wanting to sever ties because that means that they now don't have a mom and dad in their life. And it's really, really fucking hard for people like you who see everything for what it is and want to like just burst out with all the knowledge you have and burst out with like, what are you doing? No, you don't want this either. Like it's almost like you want to grab them and be like, what? How do you not see this? Um, your mic's off. Do you are on? Do you want to say something?
I just want to say yes, I agree.
Yeah, like you want to shake them and be like, how do you no, can I tell you everything that's going wrong? And in those moments, like I said before, right, that would most likely be proving your dad right to your sibling because of whatever they talk about. And
Mm.
good for you also. I think it's really cool that you didn't even remember that it was his birthday. Like that's growth. That's
Yeah.
you yeah, like, that's you focusing on yourself so much and, like, your reality of what you're doing. That's not even part of, like, your thoughts anymore, and hearing that, she was having breakfast firstly, that sucks that you were, like, so stoked for her, where you're like, "What, you made that? That's so cool," and then to be, like, up here super excited and then be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
oh." And not even being able to express fully the, "Oh." Because you don't want to upset her, you don't want her to like go and say things to your parents or whatever. And so it's like this weird, confusing, also cognitive dissonance within yourself because your brain's like, that's really fucked up. But your mouth has to pretend like your brain's not saying that's really fucked up. And the words feel kind of like betrayal coming out of your mouth, like, oh, cool. You don't mean that. But you know that you have to say that in the moment to firstly keep your relationship with your sibling okay, but also not have like a big fight blow up on her end if she goes back and talks to them. And it's also confusing as to why siblings would stay in connection with their parents when they've done very clearly X, Y, and Z. Um, and it is grief. And you did do the right thing for if you're someone who wants to keep in relationship with that sibling, you did do the right thing by pretending that it was cool, which fucking sucks, and changing the subject.
It's like, how long do I have to do that, you know?
Mhm,
Like, I've been thinking about it lately. I'm like, how long do I have to like act normal around? Like, I feel myself distancing, but like, it's heartbreaking because
mhm.
she's literally my best friend.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
more even my best friend than my best friend that's not my sister, like
Mhm,
right now. And like, I know that on her side, she thinks we're just like besties and we're just gonna hang out all the time. And like, our boyfriends hang out and it's really cool and stuff. We have this cool dynamic going on. But like,
mhm.
it's really hard for me to hang out with her, you know,
Yeah. Does
because
she
she's amazing.
yeah, and you asked how long. I think that there's not really a time limit that you can set as far as time goes. I think that it needs to be a feeling you have, like, "Okay,
Hmm.
if I start feeling this kind of a way, that's my clue and my sign to slowly pull away, or that's my sign and my clue to share with her. You don't need to share details, but you can share like your feelings of, I feel hurt by the way that my experience of how I was raised. I feel disgusted and hurt by the things that dad has done. And I understand that you have that relationship with him, but the more that, I know that you're hanging out with him and stuff, and this isn't against you as a person, it hurts me more. And I don't know how to deal with that. And you can, like, share that feeling with her. You know, if you get to a spot where you're like, "Fuck, I cannot keep this relationship going because I'm betraying myself so much by doing it and, like, not being myself and not being authentic to me." If you start feeling that way, like, heavily, do you feel like you could share that feeling with her?
Yeah. She's a very empathetic person. Like, it would be hard for her to hear. I mean, she's already heard the stuff that my dad has done and almost denied it, but she still listened to what I had to say.
Mhm. So, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe don't give it a timeline, give it, like, a feeling, or maybe a couple
Yeah.
feelings, you know, if I start to feel this way or if I start to do the thing where I don't say things anymore when we're hanging out because I don't wanna say the wrong thing or I don't want to upset her or say information that she's gonna pass along. Like, once you start really, really getting to that feeling, it if she's someone who is empathetic, then it might be worth it to share that feeling. Yeah, and see where that goes from there, and if you do end up having that feeling, I mean, you and I can go into more depths about it, on,
Yeah.
like, our calls, and because, I mean, that's sibling relationships are so important, and they are your best friend. They've been with you your whole fucking life.
We
So
have
it's like
sisters, you know.
yeah, yeah, and so, yeah, it's a big moment of grief, and I think that you deserve to share that feeling, at the very least, share that feeling. Um, you're welcome. Very least, share that feeling, and if you start feeling heavily, like what I, like, said, if you start feeling that way in your feelings timeline, um, listen to it. Like, don't try to push it down more. Don't push off your intuition when it comes to it or that gut feeling. Listen to it and be like, okay, ugh, this is my time to have a really uncomfortable conversation with somebody that I love. And you don't, when, like, within that first conversation, if it happens where you share your feelings, um, there doesn't need to be a, and so now we're gonna do this. Like, there doesn't need to be an ending of a conclusion of like, so our relationship's gonna look like this now. It can just exist as a conversation about feelings first. That's probably gonna
Right?
jolt that, yeah, that's probably gonna jolt that person's system because they're like, wait, what? It's like out of, even though they know things that have happened, it's out of their reality of what they currently believe. And so it might jolt them. Then you might get a weird reaction. You might get a good reaction, but that person's, she's probably going to take some time to hold what you tell her and then see what happens over a little bit of time and then have another conversation. If you get another feeling like, no, I really need to talk about this and have a conversation of, okay, how do we move forward together? They can exist as different times, you know, let your body flow, let your feelings flow and trust them when they happen. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But it is a grieving process and it sucks all the donkey balls. Just sucks. um, okay, next question. How do I get back to my, oh, okay. I'm incredibly angry inside since discovering all the shit. Is that bad? I'm confused. Uh, you make sense that you're confused because it's fucking confusing. 'Cause you're like, what? What is happening? How is this relationship even a thing? How is this real? Did you ever love me? Do you know how to love? What is love? Baby. Yeah. So when you do discover all the shit, all the things, anger is a huge emotion that we feel because it's like, how dare you? How could you? I would never, especially to a child, right? Like, h- how? How? And we go through this like confusion of like, what the fuckness again, because it doesn't, the things that they do and the way they treat you don't really make sense. Really? Like if you try to explain to somebody some of the things I'm incredibly angry to all the time, like grief, it comes in waves. Yes, Yeah, it just pops up. Like sometimes you'll just be like doing the dishes, staring off or whatever, and then something waves over you, and you remember something that has happened, something that's currently happening. Even thinking about things that they might do in the future, like, oh, I bet you, and just being so angry also that no one else in the world seems to see it, and it's so fucking angering. And you're angry for yourself. You're angry at them. You're angry at people who don't see it, people who you talk to about what's actually went down, and then they still choose to be around them and choose to not see it, which is hurtful towards you. And it's like, how could you hurt me in that way when I told you my very raw feelings about it? Like, what? And then you're angry about that. And anger, you're kind of angry about being angry too, because you don't want to be angry because you're like, fuck. And it's also an emotion that we were never really allowed to express and feel. So it's unfamiliarity within our body and it's uncomfortable within our body because we've never really been able to have a healthy relationship with anger. So now that we're feeling it after discovering everything, it's like such an intense feeling that we don't fully understand how to express and feel, and our body does not like it. It doesn't like it. So it reacts in ways like you could blow up, you could go silent, you could get rashes. It can be a physical experience. You can get really, really hot. Um, and a lot of us growing up have been disconnected with our bodies as far as feelings go. Like it's hard for a lot of people to feel things in their body. Like if I say, where do you feel your anger in your body? A lot of people who have grown up in narcissistic families can't answer that question at first because we're just completely disconnected from the way that our body feels inside. Um, and yeah, yes. And so figuring out how to reconnect with your body and connect with your actual emotions and with your anger is such a big part of the healing journey. And it's important that you feel when you're feeling angry inside, that's important. Don't ignore it. Don't suppress it. Don't think that, you are just this angry person and you're difficult and you're this and you're that. You're a person who is discovering new things, very real new things about the way that things went down and the way that things currently are, what you deserve, what you don't deserve. And the fact that you like spent your whole life not being who you were meant to be because of your parents who are supposed to help you become who you're meant to be, but instead they did the opposite. And so now you're like, no, now I got to do all that work and now I need to learn about feelings and I need to figure all this shit out by myself. Like what the hell? And you're not even there for me because you suck. And it's angering, but it's important to let yourself be angry. Don't allow don't allow your adult self now to continue to treat your current version of yourself and every past version of yourself, including when you're a little kid. Mm-mm. That little kid inside of you does not deserve for you to suppress her anger anymore, for you to tell her she's not allowed to feel or that they're not allowed to feel. At this point, when you've discovered all this stuff, all those versions inside of you and your current self are like, "Yeah, see, I was angry about something and it was festering and I fucking knew it. I didn't know that I knew it, but I fucking knew it. And you're allowed to be angry. Um, and understanding how to express the anger and get it out and process it and figure out where it's coming from. And that's all part of it because if you don't let yourself process it and feel it, it's going to pop out somewhere else. Like anger is kind of like an umbrella to other emotions also. And so if you just like don't think about your anger and you're like, no, 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 being angry is a bad thing. Being angry is not helping me in my journey. Mm-mm. No, that's not going to be helpful for you because it's going to pop out. Like you can be riding along in your little happy raft, like, oh yeah, everything's fine, everything's fine. There's one little thing that happens in your day, and you're fucking pissed about it, so angry about it, and then okay, just put that away. And now there's like multiple holes of anger popping out where you're like, I didn't even know. Why am I angry about that? And it's because there's other shit happening with your anger that's been suppressed and pushed down, and it's just popping up in random spots now because your body is like trying to get it out. It's like, listen to me, pay attention to me, please. Um, and when we pay attention to our anger and let ourselves express it, maybe I'll do a call on anger actually. That would probably be really helpful. Call on anger and like how to process it, how to express it, how to work through it, how to talk about it. Yeah, that'll be helpful. That'll be our next call, maybe, or part of our next call. Anyway, anger is an umbrella, and one of the biggest reasons why it's important to let yourself be angry is because once we understand the anger and we process it like from our body physically, just like get it out, then we can start. Because when we feel angry and an intense emotion, it happens at the bottom of our brain. It's in our brainstem, or yeah, in the bottom of our brain, and that's where our survival brain is, like our fight or flight response of like, how do I immediately deal with this? And that when you're letting your body get it out, you're able to move in your brain from your survival brain to your like thinking and processing brain. So once you're able to get it out and actually feel it, so don't ignore it, feel it, then underneath the umbrella, you're able to peek through and like the think of it as like a colored umbrella, like a colored umbrella you cannot see through when you're angry, angry, angry. And then you let your body feel it and express it. And then the colored umbrella becomes kind of like a clear one, and you can see some of the emotions underneath it. And your anger might be coming from sadness, betrayal, um, disconnect. It could be coming from so many things. There's a whole like emotions wheel that has basically every emotion you can feel, and a lot of them exist underneath anger. And when you're able to come to your processing part of your brain and reflecting and stuff like that after you let your anger out in a healthy way, you can discover what's underneath. Like, okay, what am I angry about though? What am I angry about? And those are the things that exist underneath the umbrella. So let's say sadness. I'm angry because I'm sad about this thing. Okay, now you can go deeper. Why does that thing make me sad? Oh, it's because of this. So how has that affected me over time now? What is that doing to me now? That sadness about that one thing or about multiple things. Oh, okay. That's why. Now I can change or move forward with the new understanding. And it's like you process through it and you understand it, that moment of anger, right? And over time, when you let yourself feel those moments of anger and process those moments of anger and reflect on them, you become more connected with the feeling of being angry, and that it's kind of your friend because it's like an alert system. Our anger exists within ourselves as an alert system to let us know something. And we should listen to it and let it tell us what it wants to tell us. So that over time we're more harmonious with our thoughts, feelings, emotions, being able to process them and feel them. And I want to also say that anger is not like a negative emotion. Emotions just are. They exist. They come, they go. You feel them. Don't logic your way out of them before you feel them, because logicking your way out of it is suppression, and it'll just pop up in another place. So, yeah, let yourself feel the anger. Is this bad? No, it's good. It means you're in the right direction. And being confused is also okay. It's a confusing experience. Don't try to think your way out of the confusion. Don't try to think your way out of the anger. Let yourself be confused. Let yourself be angry. And over time, the confusion becomes clearer and the anger becomes kind of your friend. Uh, and if you told me that growing up, that like, anger's your friend, I'd be like, what? I would be so confused. But it does make sense now in adulthood and going through the healing journey. Um, so, is there another question? Okay, so here's the actionable takeaways section. So, I'm in the way. Can I move myself? I can move myself. Okay, I'll move myself down here for now, and then I'll move myself up later. Um, so number one, take time to be compassionately there for the little inside of you. Not just present for them, but like compassionately there. Like if you make a mistake, right? Okay, so the next thing is try new things and explore yourself with openness for mistakes. Because mistakes is something that like you just were not allowed to do. You were not allowed to make a mistake growing up. Like, nope. You needed to be perfect. You needed to follow the rules and blah 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 to a T. Especially if you were the scapegoat. So what I mean by take time to be compassionately there for the little inside of you, it's in moments where you're kind of reparenting yourself, where you make mistakes. Be compassionate with yourself when you make mistakes. Your little is learning. Like you now taking the time to heal and work through all this stuff is like the first time the little inside of you has been seen, understood, listened to, asked how they're feeling, cared about, and sat with in those feelings, learning about what feelings are in the first place, how to do things that they wanted to do but have never really tried to do out of fear of doing it badly or people making fun of you in the family. And so this is a lot of versions of you, including your current self's first time doing so many things. So be compassionately there for the little inside of you all the time because they deserve that compassion and so do you. Um, those will help you in like if you can remember them in the moments. Those are so helpful for many facets of life. Even like trying baking or like doing the dishes. If you're doing the dishes and it's super slippery and soapy and you drop something and it breaks, so you dropped it and it broke. That's okay. You got to enjoy it while you had it. Now you don't have it. Clean it up. Maybe be able to glue it back together. If you can't, that's okay. Clean it up. Toss it. Now you get to go and like explore to find that thing again or a better thing. Or you're like, I wanted that a different color anyway. You know, talk to yourself about those moments when they happen. Like if you break something, you can talk to yourself and be like, in your head if people are around or out loud if you're comfortable with it and say like, "Oh, that's okay." Like the way that you would speak to a kid. If you saw a little kid or you were with a little kid and you were doing the dishes with them and they've dropped something and broke, how would you deal with that? You'd probably say like, "Oh, mm, oops. Okay, so let's clean that up together. And how can we change this next time to maybe not drop that thing? Maybe let's rinse our hand first, right? Get the soap off at least our hands, and then pick that up with two hands." You can even like, in your mind's eye, picture like yeah, okay, let's clean it up and just be so kind and compassionate towards like the things that you do and the mistakes you make and be patient because you deserve patience. Get real with yourself about the ways you do not feel comfortable being treated and start making changes to the people around you slash create self-aligning boundaries. The prompt is in the next slide for this, for boundaries. And remind yourself that healing's not linear. It really isn't. Like you'll learn something and you'll be like, "Oh, got it. I got it." And then in the moment where like there's like an argument happening or you're super sad about something or you were excited about something to happen and now it's not happening. Sometimes everything you learned goes out the window because what have you learned your whole life up until the point where you learned that new thing? So much of like other things before your new knowledge. And so, right, our brain's like familiarity, it knows familiarity. So, even though you learn some new stuff, sometimes in moments, it's like you didn't. It's not there. It's gone. And you will act in ways that you're like, why did I do that? And it's all because it's not linear. Like and sometimes you'll feel really great about your growth and really great about how your day's going or life's going. And then other times it's like the depths of like so much sadness and confusion and like, oh, why did I even start working on myself? This is so sad and lonely and painful and it goes in waves. And the difference between you before starting to heal and you after starting to heal is the way that you deal with those moments with yourself. you start to be more compassionate in those moments over time. And you're like, it's okay that I forgot to do that. It's okay that I reacted that way. Why did I react that way? Oh, right. Because of this in the past. Right, right. That's okay. We're okay. We are safe. We are going to reflect on this and apologize to a person if like you've hurt their feelings or whatever, but you also deserve an apology too if they did the same thing towards you, right? It goes both ways. Um, but the way that you respond to yourself about your responses in the moments where you just forget how to work through things or how to deal with things is so drastically different once you've started your healing process because you are more compassionate about it. You start reflecting more. And yeah, you might feel self shame about it, but the shame kind of transforms a bit. It's not like I'm so this or that. It's like, why am I so this or that? Let's figure that out. And it's a different relationship with your feelings and the way that you are. So yeah, remind yourself that healing is not linear because some days you feel golden, some days you do not feel golden. That's all part of it, and it's okay. So this next here, the next part is one way that, and this is part of the change maker program um, that I work through with clients, and this is something that I used like 5 years ago or 6 years ago to kickstart my self-aligning boundaries. So this might be helpful for you. You can take a screenshot, write it down. Um, Journal prompt to help find self aligning boundaries. So basically, the things that are important to you. If I could create my own forever home, this is what it would sound like, feel like, smell like, have inside of it, what it would foster, what experiences I would want to have, and the type of people I would want to share it with. You don't need to name people, name the type of people I want to share it with. So if you take time to write that down, if I could create my own forever home, this is and really like think about it. Like, what would it so would it be loud? Would it be chaotic? Excuse me. Would there be people arguing? Or would it be calm? Would you have music that you like playing? What kind of music? Would it be a CD? Would it be a record? Would it be Spotify? Would it be songs at the end of that would play at the end of, like, VHS movies when we were little? Like, would it just be a soundtrack of that stuff? Like, you can get really, really hone in on those things. What would it sound like, feel like, smell like? Would it be cold, warm, inviting? What would you have inside of it? What would you foster? And who would you want? What type of people to be in it? And the reason why this prompt is so helpful when it comes to figuring out self aligning boundaries, like boundaries that align with you and who you are. The reason why this is so helpful is because as you write this out, you're also actively writing out the things that matter to you, your non negotiables, the things that make you feel really, really good inside and make you feel you inside, things that encourage you to be your best self and to be the like calmest self that you are. And those are all things that you deserve to experience within yourself. And so when you write that prompt out, you can go through afterwards and look at everything that you've written and kind of create boundaries or loose things, at least to start off, loose topics and things that you are not willing to negotiate in your life anymore. And the people that you do want to have around and things that you do want to foster. And um, if you wrote down, my house would sound like this, in your day to day life, boundaries are going to exist within you where, like, no, I'm not going to be around places or people that are yelling, or especially yelling at me, because my forever home inside is not going to sound like that. I'm not going to be in places that sound like that. I'm not going to be around people who make me feel like that. I'm not going to be around smell like. I mean, Like, do you want to be around like candles and nice smells and or do you want to be around someone who constantly chain smokes? Like, is that a boundary for you where you're like, I don't want that. Um, and what would you have inside of it? What would you foster? What experiences would you want to have in your forever home? That's in here too, right? So that's going to reveal to you what you want to experience. Maybe it's going to reveal things that you haven't yet experienced that you're like, oh wait, I'm going to do that. How do I do that? Um, and it'll also show you the types of people you want to have in your life. So then you can start looking at the people that are around and kind of figuring out who you want to keep around, who you don't, who you want to still have in your life, but like at a distance. You'll start creating those kinds of boundaries, and this is super helpful to start figuring out what those would be within yourself and figuring out your negotiables or non-negotiables because you are your own forever home. Doesn't matter how many times you moved, doesn't matter how many relationships you've been in, none of that is your home. Those are just buildings, those are other people, those are things. You are always going to be within your forever home. And you deserve for your forever home to feel the way you want it to feel inside. And that starts with firstly figuring out what that is for you, and then also moving forward with boundaries that protect that home within yourself that you're wanting to create and that you deserve to create. Okay, so that's going to be really helpful. And so that's the end of today's coaching call. And once again, I am going to go on my stories. Maybe I'll actually make a post about it so more people can like see it because not everybody watches stories. And let me know like when is the best time to have these calls because I want to make sure that it's accessible for people. And if people are working and stuff, like that's not exactly fair to the working people or people who are on the call who want to talk to each other, right? So that will be coming up. And before I sign off, is there anybody who wants to say anything else, or like a last little tidbit? It's okay if there's not.
Yes, thank you.
Hmm. You're welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being you, also, and choosing yourself and choosing your growth and doing the hard work of grieving through the things that you don't deserve to have to grieve through. You don't. um, but you deserve the liberation within yourself that comes with that. And yeah, I'm really excited for you to slowly start discovering your own forever home within yourself and figuring out what your non negotiables are and what your self aligning boundaries are and what you foster within you. And you can send me messages too, like send me messages or an email or whatever if you have like an aha moment of, oh, these are my boundaries, or can you help me? I figured out my self aligning boundaries that I want. How do I turn that into a reality for myself? Um, Anybody who has sent in a question or is on this call right now, I will do that for you. So, because I want that for you. I want you to feel like you, especially in your own forever home. So reach out. I'm here. And I hope that you have an awesome rest of your night, relaxing night. Try to do something for yourselves, maybe this prompt. Um, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for being here. Bye. Oh wait, I didn't end the call. Bye. Here we go.